This video is proudly sponsored by Newtype. Tools, accessories, model kits, these guys have it. Hop over to newtypehq.com and use the link below to help this channel out for future builds. Hey, what's going on my dudes and dudettes, and welcome back to another exciting build from your boy Otaku Builder. So, without further ado, let's finally get started building the 1/100 scale full mechanics XVX-016 Gundam Aerial for the anime series Mobile Suit Gundam: The Witch from Mercury. And without further ado, let's get to it. Hello and welcome back my dudes and dudettes, another unique build from your boy Otaku Builder, and if this is your very first time onto his YouTube channel, welcome! So, Gundam Witch from Mercury finally wrapped up a couple months ago, and I have to say, it is a really refreshing take of taking something that's familiar and exciting from a Gundam franchise. It's definitely one of my top favorite ones next to 00 Gundam and the Iron Blood Orphan, so this fits a nice little sweet spot. But I had no idea that they were actually going to be building a 1/100 scale XVX-016 Gundam Aerial from Full Mechanics. This came out of left field and I had no idea this was ever going to happen. Shockingly enough, it did, and I actually have a lot of ideas that I want to utilize for this particular mobile suit. But before I get into that, let's talk about what we can expect for the box art. You get a nice tight shot of the mobile suit, really showing that there's a great range of articulation compared to its counterpart, the high grade, and a good hint of gimmicks here and there. Nice shot of the actual mobile suit pilots, L.E.D Mercury, and finally we get the other shot of the box art showing a great range of surface detail, the effect parts that are going to be utilized for the permit score, and at the same time, great range of articulation for the elbows, knees, fit bending, as also swiveling areas for the actual beam saber slots, and also the dispersing parts for the gun bits. This is really impressive for a full mechanics model kit. Definitely is taking the next step up from what they learned from the Gundam Barbatos and the Gundam Lupus Rex. They're definitely utilizing something new. So without further ado, let's take a look inside the box. And as always, you are happily greeted with the instruction manual, giving you a beautiful illustration of the Mobile Suit Aerial, a nice tight shot of the first page showing all the actual runners you're going to be needing for this model kit, a little glimpse of hints on what you're going to need for particular tools such as snippers, tweezers for the sticker decals, as well as a small glimpse of what you can really expect for this unique interframe design, because at the same time, this interframe is not close to a master grade status or even a real grade. It's just between the two, where you get a great deal of surface detail and a good deal of surface interframe to actually utilize what you can do for LED installation. And that's very much apparent when it comes to the eyes, because there actually are two separate pieces in which you can actually put an LED light in there, just like its high grade counterpart. But what's actually more impressive of this model kit is the gimmicks. Now the knees have a great range of articulation, getting that full bend to pull off the classic one knee on the ground look for the actual Gundam Mobile Suit Aerial. But what's really unique about this model kit is the actual weapon accessories: two beam sabers and a shield and a beam rifle. The beam rifle is actually kind of interesting because you can actually add like an effect part on it to make it like a beam sword, and as the shield itself, it can be dispersed in tiny little pieces to create the classic gun bit effect. Now when you do the gun bit effect, you're going to actually need to buy an action base separately, but most importantly, let's talk about the actual sticker decals. These are great for something that is actually close to the same level as a master grade and a high grade, and behind the actual instruction manual, you get a nice tight shot of a color guide if you choose to actually custom paint the Gundam Aerial to what you see from this specification. So enough about that, let's take a look what to expect inside the box. So yeah, this part was the part that I was actually really concerned about when I actually bought this model kit. I was really hoping these parts would be like clear effect parts, so that way I can utilize an LED light system behind these pieces, but unfortunately these are actually like actual runners that have been sprayed with a metallic silver and then spray on top with a clear coat red metallic finish to it. I'm not gonna rock it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but for someone that really want to utilize the LED like features, some customization is going to be really required to really pull off this look. Now, as for the additional runners, you get the classic red runners for the actual feet, mid torso, as well as parts for the face, and then there are other parts around the actual mid abdomen area, which is also great, and then tons and tons of red runners for the classic knees, ankles, feet, shoulder blades, you name it. Everything's here that you need with a nice simple design. At the same time, not too simple to the point where you get a great deal of surface detail. Now, most importantly, let's talk about the clear parts. Now, these parts are going to be absolutely great when it comes to pulling off the permit score effect. Now, I'll eventually get into explaining in the video how I'm going to pull this off, but it's actually nice for someone that actually just wants to create something straight up. You have the effect parts, clear runners done for you and ready to go. Now, this blue here is a bit concerning because the last time I used on the actual high grade, I wasn't too happy with the actual cobalt blue that came out with this. So I'm going to use something more of a bright blue to make that classic Gundam color blue finish to make it look dynamic looking, and then you get the classic yellow gun bits, and as well as the actual one piece for the eyes, like I mentioned earlier in the video. This is absolutely great because the green itself is not too transparent and not too deep. You can actually pull off that effect with a simple LED light behind there. And last and finally, we get the sticker decals, which we're not going to need it, followed by the last additional runners. They're going to be the classic white runners for the actual gun bits, ears around the head to pull off the classic bunny ears for the Aerial Gundam, and other additional parts for the actual gun bit effects to make them look really cool, followed by the additional dark runners. These are going to be the inner frame pieces for the actual shoulder blades, arms, inner frame for the head, you name it. This is all done here with good deal surface detail, followed by the weapon accessories, which is going to be the beam rifle and parts and bits of the actual inner frame of the upper torso and the abdomen area. Now, once again, like I mentioned before, the actual surface detail and the actual inner frame is actually very impressive for something that is a full mechanics, not close to a mastery status, but taking a look at it at a first glance, this is actually great in many ways. You can actually pull off great dynamic poses with this particular design. So enough about that being said, this model kit is going to require a lot, and I mean a lot of time to construct. Now, normally I would get this done in less than 2 to 3 weeks, but since my job is killing me left and right, it'll take me close to 3.5 months to complete this project. So, like I mentioned earlier on in this video, this part is going to prove to be the most difficult part of this model kit. Why? Because this model kit doesn't come with no clear runners. So, I remember back when I was in college, I actually did a great deal of creating my own resin pieces when I took advanced sculpting. Now, keep in mind that was almost like 10 plus years ago, so I understand that I needed the right kind of resin, the actual right kind of casting to put the pieces in, but the process on the way how I did it back in the day was different compared to how I did it now, because I did it wrong. Number one, I put it in the wrong kind of container because it actually became very difficult to get out. Two, I did not pre-lube the areas. So what I mean by that is, like, before you actually put the pieces in the mold, you got to make sure they have like a little bit of moisture on it, so that way they get easily removed out of the molding. Now, I was satisfied with the molding process I had there, but when I ended up taking them out, they did not look good at all. So I actually did some digging to see if I can get these pieces, you know, 3D printed. And the closest individual that was in my area that was able to 3D print these pieces was charging close to $500 to $600. So I'm like, there's got to be a way to get around this. But fortunate enough, I was talking to my good friend Hef Gumpla, and he actually works in the entertainment industry, and he actually has a great deal of experience of actually creating 3D printed or casting pieces because he's into the makeup modeling business. So he was generous enough to actually print me 3 pieces, one for the actual Gundam Aerial, maybe one for a future client, and possibly one for a future kit bash, which will happen very, very soon. And as you can see here, the quality of these printed pieces are top notch. Now, keep in mind, these aren't 3D printed, these are resin printed. And as you can see here on a side-to-side comparison for mine, his is actually done professionally well. And I'm very grateful that he was able to actually do that. It's not only going to be difficult to put these pieces into the actual appropriate slots, but at the same time, putting LED lights behind it is going to be very easy. But what's really shocking enough is the actual printed pieces for the eyes. These aren't resin printed at all. This is actually 3D printed, and I was actually very shocked that he was able to do this, because from what I understand, this particular part, it's very difficult to actually get a resin print. So I was actually very grateful to actually get a good set of these. So thank you so much, Hef, for actually giving this to me. Now, the application I'm going to be applying onto this particular piece is actually going to be relatively simple. I'm going to be generously hitting them up with a nice Mr. Hobby flat black, close to like 3 to 10 coats. I want to make sure that every little recessive detail really pops out with this dark black. Give it close to like 3 to 4 hours in between one application, and then let it sit for like 48 hours. Then after they're said and done, I'll check on in a couple of days to see how they look, and then if I need to put in more applications on top of that, I'll be really good to go. Now, without further ado, I'm gonna get started actually painting the inner frame pieces, because that's gonna be the most difficult part to do. Alright, so now all the pieces aren't actually completely painted, it's now time to do some custom drilling and cutting to actually install those crazy LED lights. So to pull off this effect, there are some nubs that are going to need to be cut off completely and used as guideposts to actually drill holes through and through to actually put in all those custom LED lights. This process is a bit tricky and very complex to pull off, but if done right, it'll look really cool. So don't take your time, don't rush it, just have fun doing this. Okay, now comes the next exciting part in this build, and that's going to be installing the Knight Rider LED light sets for this particular build. Now, I'll be using two sets, one for the upper body, one for the legs. Now, I've seen countless builders pull off this effect beautifully by having the strobe lights go in one direction. I want to do a rolling back and forward effect, so that way I create something separate and at the same time really unique compared to my fellow builders. So, the way I'll be utilizing this effect part, it's going to be really simple. This number system starts from 1 to 6, both in each quadrant of the actual torso, working its way from the shoulder blades up to the main head and to the main backpack area. So I'll be starting from 1, work my way up to 6, and then when I utilize these effect parts from the very bottom part of the legs, it's going to start from 6 and work its way back to 1. This part is difficult, but at the same time really exciting to work on. So as I'm getting the chest cavity prepared to install the LED lights, I need to take a step back and evaluate how many LED lights I can cram into this tight space. So the amount of LED lights to make the effect parts look streamlined is close to 3 LED lights. So I'll have 2 at the very bottom, 1 in the midsection of the top, and then 1 on the shoulder blade sections to really pull off the effect. Ideally, what I'm trying to emulate is a nice smooth transition between the LED lights, because if they're too far apart, the effect won't come out the way how I envision it. As always, before I get ready to lock everything down, I need to always remind myself to test the LED lights, because I remember working on the Enterprise refit, that became a problem. So as you can see here, I have the external LED lights for the head already ready to go, but the upper body torso looks absolutely amazing. I'm very happy how that's turning out. There is no light bleeds, everything is in the right place where it's supposed to, and depending on the lighting conditions, it just makes that effect part look even more amazing looking. So I'm extremely happy how that turned out. Now when it comes to the actual electrical wire extensions, I'm gonna make sure I carve out a cavity space in between this particular mid piece, so that way I can funnel all the electrical wiring, so that way I can go into the shoulder blades or other key areas in the model kit. That way I can work with all the electrical wiring. Okay, so now the torso is literally done. It's now time to install the LED lights in the head. Now the challenging part is going to be the jewel section for the forehead to really make that permanent square effect look really cool. I'm gonna have to widen out this particular alcove just a little bit more, so that way I can sneak in the Pico LED lights to pull off the effect. Now this part is very delicate. I don't want to mess it up too much to the point, because I only got one model kit. So to do this part effectively, I'm just gonna widen up the aperture just enough, so that way I can glue in the actual resin piece and then install the LED lights behind there. So remember earlier in the video when I said that the green part is going to be sufficient to pull off that LED light effect? It still stays true. The green part itself is just enough to the point where it actually can refract just enough light right through it. So if you can't really go through the process of getting your own 3D resin pieces printed or get it 3D printed yourself, just stick with the one that comes with the model kit. You'll be good to go. Alright, so just like earlier on the video, we're going to be utilizing the same kind of procedure when it comes to install the LED lights inside the legs area. So the wonderful thing about this particular circuit is if you're running two of them at the same time, a lot of Evan Designs LED lights tend to have a desyncing problem, but strangely enough, they won't have a desyncing problem at all because they're running on two independent circuits. So just like what I did with the first one, the LED lights from the upper torso roll from 1 to 6. Now the one at the very bottom is going to roll from 6 to 1. Now the reason why I want to go with this effect, instead of it going from rolling up and then rolling down, I want all the LED lights to come into like a conversion point from the center and then impulse back out, in and out. Okay, that sounded a little bit weird, but you guys know what I'm talking about. This is the kind of effect that I want to pull off for this build. Okay, my dudes and dudettes, we are literally at the home run stretch here. Now this part is not going to be too complicated. I'm going to top things off by hitting the surface with a nice gloss coat. Then once I hit it with the gloss coat, I'll be applying the water slide decals. And after I apply the water slide decals, I'll be hitting up the surface with your boy, good old Tamiya panel lighting solution black. Now I would originally go with the dark gray, but I feel that black has a much more boldness to it, especially when you're working with bright wonders. So this will do just fine. Alright, my dudes and dudettes, as this video is wrapping up, I want to share with you guys my thoughts and impressions on this build. And man, quite an adventure. You know, there was a lot of ups and downs when it came to actually constructing this project, because with my personal life becoming like a challenge every day, it really capitalized that there's not a lot of time I could really invest in these model kits, because, you know, being a full-time father, it's a great responsibility and I absolutely love it. So when I do get the time to work on these projects, I make sure I just enjoy little by little every time. But the one part that definitely hurts me the most when staying consistent with these builds is having a full-time job, and my job literally is mentally and physically like draining me. So when that energy is gone, there's like zero stamina whatsoever to work on this model kit. And I remember just going weeks and weeks and leading into like month 2 and 2.3, it became increasingly difficult to really keep the momentum going to work on this model kit little by little. And on top of that, I'm building 3 other model kits on the side that are generally for commissions for clients. It's difficult to really keep that focus going and working on this model kit. But every time I got my hands on working on it, I was excited and learning new techniques on how to install the LEDs, how to utilize the effect parts to harmonize with one another, really capitalize on just really pulling off something that was really special. Because I tried to one up the one I did for the high grade a couple months ago, and I felt I did a good job with this one. You know, I thought I did a pretty decent good job with this one. And the one thing that was really impressive with this model kit is the sheer amount of articulation you could pull off for something this impressive looking, okay? I loved it. It's a lot of fun, and at the same time, it's in that perfect price range where it's not too expensive and not too hard to find, especially now that you can find it anywhere. You can find it at your local hobby store. Most certainly now you can buy it at Newtype HQ. So without a doubt, I would strongly say, guys, go pick up this kit. You will not be disappointed, I promise you that. And without further ado, thank you dudes and dudettes for your patience. Please stay tuned for the next video next month, and I will see you dudes and dudettes on the next build.